We are live and we're good to go. Welcome, you guys. What's happening, Rockstars? Happy Wednesday to you, Coach Borino, with you on this lovely Wednesday. And as you know, once in a while, it is not just me giving you tips and advice, how to generate leads and how to bring clients, how to get listings, but I also bring somebody who can give you some insight from a different perspective. And today I'm really excited because this is for the first time we have a special guest here on Rockstars who will give you insight. You see, it's great that you're getting listings. It's great that you're selling homes, and I'm here to help you. If you need my help, of course I'm here. But for those of you who've been in the business for a while, you know what comes after the contracts get accepted. We get into the inspection.
Yeah.
And if you've been at it for a while, how many of those have been really smooth and easy and pleasant, where the buyer didn't freak out, the seller didn't want to fire everybody, there wasn't a little meltdown? Right? If you're like me, you've had deals like that. We all have. It's just part of the process. And because the emotions are high, it's very easy for a buyer to say, oh, fuck that. It's dripping faucet. I'm not buying that house. And I'm exaggerating just slightly. So today I have an expert in the house who's been at it for over 20 years, who runs a big company, big home inspection company, who is here to share with you some insights straight from the horse's mouth, straight from people who are doing this every day. Now, why do we have him here? Let me introduce him. His name is Preston Sandlin. Do I pronounce it right, Preston?
Yes, you did. Preston Sandlin, yes.
It's Preston Sandlin, and you run Carolina Home Inspection, am I correct?
Home Inspection Carolina in Charlotte.
In Charlotte, perfect. So for those of you guys who need to get hold of a good inspector, Preston would be the guy to contact, and we'll, of course, share his contact information and all that good stuff. But I wanted to bring him on board because so many times you guys work your ass off finding the right client. Then if it's a buyer, finding them the right house. And God knows in this crazy market, that alone can be a challenge, getting your offer accepted. And as you go into the home inspection, either it can blow up the deal altogether. I had deals that I lost over inspection that came out not all that happy. Or there are some hurdles and some problems. So I brought Preston in to give us some insight from the inspector's perspective. What is it like to work with real estate agents, work with clients who can get sometimes emotional? And what can we do to prevent problems or at least diminish the impact of those problems, mitigate them as much as we can? How can we prepare the buyer and the seller in advance? How can you prepare your listing in advance? Is it a good idea to get a pre-inspection before the property hits the market? All this good stuff. Now, I want to keep it very informal, as we always do here in Rockstars. I want to keep it very interactive. So if you have questions, please pop them here in the comments, and I'll make sure we'll answer them before we finish. And with that, a warm Rockstar welcome to Mr. Preston Sandlin. Preston, welcome. Welcome to the Rockstars.
Well, thanks, Borino. I appreciate it. Yeah, just like you said, you know, it takes a lot of work to get to the point to where you're having an inspection. And I have my real estate license. I don't buy or sell. I just had it so I could have the super key. So I rub shoulders with real estate agents all the time. I know what you guys go through. I mean, you're hauling and hoping, showing and praying and pinching. I think I heard one of my real estate instructors say, it's really hard to get to the part where you're having an inspection. And then you have the inspection, and it can be a very emotional time. You know, sellers, a lot of times people sell, you know, they've lived there for 20 years. All their memories are tied up in this house. This house is like their child, you know, and I used to be a school teacher, and my wife was a school teacher. And, you know, it's very hard to say something negative about somebody's child. You know, that parent-teacher conference is. So sometimes when you're, you know, looking at their house with a, you know, critical eye, that's just something that is going to be an emotional time for them.
So it'd be kind of like somebody looking at your kid and, you know, pulling on their eyes, looking at their teeth and poking and, right?
Let me tell you what little Johnny did today, your little angel. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I get it. And sometimes the deal falls apart over the inspection, and I get that. I talk to agents all the time, and every agent that's been around a while has had a deal fall apart over the inspection. And I always go back and I said, you know, is there anything that could have been done different that could have kept this from happening? And one thing that I figured out was a lot of times, Borino, it's the timing of the inspection. I know sometimes inspectors get labeled deal killers, and, you know, maybe sometimes that's truthful. But sometimes I think the deal was going to die. It's just a matter of when the inspection was done. And let me explain that. You know, usually when you sell a house, right, there's some form of financial compromise. Seller comes down a little bit, buyer comes up a little bit. There's a little back and forth, right? So a lot of times by the time you get that contract signed, seller feels like, well, I've come down as much as I can come down. Seller's like, I'm going up as much as I can go. Then you have the inspection. And during that inspection, you know, you turn up $10,000 worth of damage. You know, the shower pan's rotten, floor joists need to be replaced. And nobody wants to compromise twice. You know, the seller's already come down, the buyer's already come up, and the seller's like, you know, if I would have known about that, I wouldn't have come down on my price to begin with. So it's always been my contention. I'm a big fan of pre-inspections, you know, pre-listing inspections. Find out, you know, what's wrong with the house before you put that house on the market. And that way everybody doesn't waste their time and the deal doesn't fall apart. Either A, the deal doesn't happen to begin with, or B, you adjust the price, or C, you get multiple bids out there and, you know, get the lowest bid. Now, pre-inspections have been around for a long time, but there's two major objections in my mind of pre-inspections. I mean, we have agents here that do them, but, you know, they've never taken off big time. I think they have a little bit more in the Pacific Northwest. The two objections are cost. You know, who's going to pay for it? Seller doesn't want to pay for it. I get it. And they don't want to go through it twice. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to pay this guy to come out here and call my baby ugly. I'm going to spend all this money, fix all this stuff. And then the buyer's going to bring their inspector in, call my baby ugly again, and I got to go through it again. I don't want to go through it twice, right? Would you say those are fair objections?
That's very common. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I thought, let me see if I can attack both of those objections. And there's other things you can do too. But the first one is, if you do a pre-inspection, you've got to set expectations. You know, I can go behind any inspector in this country and find small stuff. Any inspector can come behind me and find small stuff. The main reason for a pre-inspection is to find out that potential deal-killing landmine. You know, the rotten floor joist, the termite damage. You know, nobody's going to walk away from a deal because the door rubs, but they will for, you know, $5,000 floor joist repair. You know what I mean? So set expectations. Yes, that buyer is going to bring in another inspector, but he's going to, you know, and he's going to find small stuff. If he finds big stuff, in our company, we refund the money. If they find one single item over $1,500, we'll refund the money because our guy should have found that. But he's going to find small stuff. Now, the second part is the cost. And that's one I've tried to attack for a long time. And there's two options that I've seen that are successful. Some listing agents have offered to pay for it. And now I don't know in some states if that's whatever. But the way they do it is the seller goes ahead and pays for it, and then the agent will pay for it out of their proceeds from the closing. So that way, it kind of, you know, it would be unfair for an agent to pay for that, and then that, you know, seller go with another agent or something. So it kind of, you know, golden handcuffs, I guess is a good word to use. Yeah. That's one option. Another option is an inspector friend of mine in Indiana, and I came up with this thing called inspectedhouses.com. And the way it works, you know how you have those signs that you put up for more information about this house, text this number? Well, we thought, what if we could use that technology? And you know that technology is lead capture. You know, when they call, it captures. You know, you can call it, it can tell you, you know, how old you are, how much, what's your income range. It's crazy. Well, I thought, what if we could combine that with getting an inspection report? So the idea was combine that with Carfax. So what we thought was, the way it works is, and we've been successful in our market, is we'll pre-inspect a house, the seller will pay us for it, and then that report goes up for sale. And we could put a sign in the yard, text this code to get the report, and it's $19.95, and then that money goes back to the seller to offset their cost. So we're trying to, you know, attack that other objective. You know, now, have we sold enough to, you know, a home inspection is $450? No. We had one report that sold 7 times, which I guess is like $140. But it does offset it. And the cool thing about it is each time somebody texts that number, the realtor can get the lead off of it too. So the idea is it does 3 things. Prevents the deal from going sideways, which we talked about. Generates leads for the realtor, and then offsets the cost for the seller.
I like that idea. Well, it's like Mercedes and many high-end car companies offer the certified pre-owned.
Right.
So you're getting a very detailed report about the car, like Carfax, but also about the condition. So this can somehow bring more peace of mind to the buyer, knowing, okay, it may not be a perfect house, and it's an older house, but at least I know what's with the house.
Sure, sure. And I also think you're providing that convenience factor,
Yeah.
which, I know among realtors, I got a lot of realtor friends, these iBuyer programs that sell your house to a pawn shop. Their big thing is convenience. I mean, that's what you got to, that's, why would anybody take, I don't want to say any names or get anybody in any trouble, but obviously a huge margin, it's like if I was really hurting for money, I would go to the pawn shop and sell something because I'm desperate. So why would anybody do that? It's convenience. And, and that's all. I mean, when, I could sell it through the traditional and get top dollar and it only cost me 6%, and, but if you could do both, get them top dollar and provide convenience for your clients, I think you would really win that race, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So, Preston, is there a difference when you do a pre-inspection in terms of what you look for, what the report looks like, and the actual inspection, or is it about the same thing?
Yeah, so like a pre-inspection versus a buyer's inspection?
Correct, yes.
It's pretty much going to be the same thing. The only thing different is, and I recommend that you have 2 inspections because the inspection is only good for the day of the inspection. And sorry, I got this cough. Mechanical systems can change. You have 3 mechanical systems: the HVAC, the plumbing, and the electrical, and they could work fine today. And 2 weeks from now, you could have a leak, a water heater, but they're pretty much the same. Your structural isn't going to change that much. But yeah, it's pretty much the same. Most inspectors will offer a little bit of a discount to do a pre-listing inspection because they can schedule it at a more convenient time. And the other cool thing is the seller can be there to, there's times we do buyer's inspections and there's a ceiling fan that's, 30 feet up there and nobody knows where the remote is, and if I put my ladder up here, I'm going to damage their wall, so I can't do that. So, but it's great if the seller can be there to point out things we might have questions about. So,
yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So guys, lesson number 1 or tip number 1, do pre-inspections if at all possible. Figure out who can pay for it, set it up. This way, you know what you're getting yourself into. The seller knows what they're getting themselves into. Potential buyer knows. Potential buyer's agents knows. Everybody's on the same page. Sometimes the problem is not that the house has a problem. House, even brand new construction has problems.
Oh, yeah.
Every house will have some kind of potential problems. I'm sure, Preston, you could confirm that. It is not sometimes the problem. It is not knowing about the problem or what would it take to get that problem fixed if it's significant enough.
Sure, and finding out about that problem after you've already had a financial negotiation.
Yeah, and this would make negotiations better, offer better. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Nobody wants to compromise twice. Now,
craziest thing you've ever seen during an inspection. Give us a story.
Oh, wow. All right, you promise it's all right?
It's perfectly fine.
Your kids watch this show?
No, I hope not mine, I hope.
Yeah, well, I've had a couple of things. A long time ago when I was a younger inspector, I was going around this house, I was crawling, and I saw what looked like hair and kind of a flesh color, and I'm thinking, it's a body, and my mind's like, oh my gosh, and everybody was at this inspection. I mean, the buyer, the seller, both agents, the uncle who did heating and air 10 years ago, they're all standing right outside the crawl space entrance, just waiting for me to come out. And I crawl over there, and it was a body, all right, but it was one of those inflatable.
Ooh, inflatable dolls. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And now, if I saw that, I would leave that there. But I was younger, so I pulled it out. And everybody's there. Right?
I would like to see the seller's face.
Yeah. I looked right at him, like, somebody's going to miss her. And, just like, you got something you want to say? He's like, I don't know.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so, we find all kinds of things, and you always find liquor bottles and, teenage kids and things like that.
Sure.
I used to have a running joke, when I come out of the crawl space or the attic, because they're just waiting on you, see what you say. And I would come out of there and I was like, yeah, everything looks great except that dead body over there. Oh. And I had one seller said, which one?
Oh, he was ready for it.
Yeah. Okay,
folks, if you're just joining us, we're talking to my man, Preston Sandlin, who runs an inspection company in Carolina and who is sharing tips and ideas for you to help more clients avoid potential problems, get more deals closed so that everybody's happy. And as we know, inspection can be a pretty big hurdle at times. So you get employed by buyer and the buyer's agent.
Correct.
What
Yeah.
are some of the tips? You've been at this for over 20 years. What advice would you give to buyer's agents to make the process smoother, to ensure that nobody freaks out and that the deal closes? Based on what you've experienced, what are some of the tips for the buyer's agent that would help them make their job better?
Awesome. Well, can I go with the seller's agent as well?
Absolutely. We'll switch to that.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Sure.
Well, one thing for the seller, and then I'll move to the buyer. One thing for the seller is, obviously I'm an advocate of pre-inspections, but if you can't do that, that's the best. But good, better, best, or just a better would be, we came up with a checklist of what we look for. And I recommend, and it's free on our website. Is it all right to give out my website?
Yeah, please do. I'll type it in there.
Yeah, it's homeinspectioncarolina.com. There's a realtor's corner, and there's a seller's inspection checklist. And I think there's like 47 items or something. We basically just went through and put down all the things that we're going to look for. I always tell people, the way this came about was my daughter and I were studying for a test. And she asked me, she said, "Daddy, isn't a home inspection kind of like a test?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." She said, do they know what to study? And I said, "No, but they should." So we created a checklist, and it's all the things the inspector is going to be looking for. So I would recommend the seller's agent print this out, and you're welcome to download it. It's a downloadable form. It's free, and no strings attached. And you can even put your logo on it if you want and provide it for your database. But give it to your seller, preferably not the night before the test. You might have to go, buy some caulk or something. But start out about a week before. And if you go through this checklist, I mean, I'm not advocating a homeowner crawl up under the lowest place of their house, but it's certainly a lot of little things to look for. Now, as far as a buyer, on the buyer side, what I would prepare them for, a couple of things. Say, look, there's going to be a lot of information on the inspection report. Don't be overwhelmed. Don't be afraid. There's a lot of just informational stuff, like where are the cutoffs? We take pictures of the dryer plugs because there's 4 different ones. We take pictures of all the the filters, because there's all different sizes, sort of like an owner's manual to your house. So what I'm basically saying is, look, don't get freaked out because it's X amount of pages. There's a lot of pictures in there. We've got to sit down and go through it and figure out what's important and what's not. And, there's going to be a lot of stuff. That's pretty normal. I always, and I don't want to get too far into you guys' territory, but, usually I would go for safety items and high dollar stuff. Some people ask for everything, but that could be unreasonable. I would just ask for and it all depends on what you're getting now. I don't know that deal, but just decipher through it. And I would go through that report and put in order of priority of what you would like and what you're willing to, say, okay, I can fix that myself. Just prioritize it and know the report's going to have a lot of information on it. Don't be too freaked out. Every house has something. Every house, and consider the age of the house. I mean, there's no perfect house. One
of the things I would do is I would actually show a buyer a sample report so they understand what's coming, so they don't freak out when they get it and go, "Oh shit, that's cracked and that's loose." And so like you said, we categorize. This is really big deal. We should address this. I wouldn't worry too much. So, do you prefer to have buyer present? Buyer be at the inspection during the inspection? Is it a good idea?
If you ask a group of inspectors, they would be like, "No, I'd rather just be there by myself because it's easier." But the real answer for that is yes, because there's less chance of misunderstanding, less chance of people calling back. I mean, usually the home inspector sits down. It goes through all the pictures. We do it on the computer and explain everything. It's just, I think everybody's a lot more on the same page. They're certainly welcome to come for the whole inspection. And, but I recommend maybe talk with the inspector a little bit in the beginning, but let the inspector do their thing. If you have any specific concerns or, address that with them early. I don't recommend following them around though, because you're going to, you're going to get them off track. You're going to start talking. You're going to distract them. I recommend basically talking to them in the beginning and in the end. And if you happen to see something that you want them to look at, sure. But I try to discourage following him around because you're impeding his ability to do his job.
I did have a buyer once show up in overalls and a hat and was ready to crawl along with the inspector. So
I've had that. And a lot of times when I have one that's following me around, I alter my routine and go right to the cross face.
Discourage them, huh?
Yeah, and I had one follow me, and I was like, golly.
Oh.
All right,
Do you share what you find with the seller? Do you like when the seller is there and you share with them as well?
That's a good question. Personally, I'm okay with it as long as they don't. I've had some that try to run interference, no matter what you're looking at. Oh, that was replaced 6 months ago. That was it. And I'm like, oh, take it easy, Francis. Sometimes I would say the majority of inspectors would say they don't like that because of that reason. And some buyers don't like it because I know sometimes there's going to be some confidential conversations going on there. But and speaking of that, I don't know if there are any confidential conversations anymore. Almost all houses have nanny cams and cameras. I always tell my inspectors and buyers, assume that you're being recorded. And I've heard of sellers, I know it's against the law or whatever, but, they've got kitchen cameras and door rings. And, I know a lot of times they have, if you're going to have a confidential conversation, you may want to make sure, maybe go out in the yard if you can or something.
Yeah.
But,
or go in the car. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the prospective inspector versus the buyer and the seller. What are some of the tips you would give to the agents? What is it like to work with some of the agents? Where do you feel the agent can cause problems or friction? What would be some of the tips? You've dealt with probably close to 100 agents, if not more.
Right. I think unrealistic expectations, and probably maybe more so, and I don't mean to pick on anybody, but newer agents maybe. I mean, there's limitations on a home inspection. They can't see through walls and they can't predict the future. And the really good agents let their buyers know that, like, look, he's going to do or she's going to do the best job that they can in the 3 hours that we're allowed to be here. I mean, I can't stay at these people's house for 2 days. And I can't take drywall apart, and I can't, we're going to do the best, but it's a visual inspection only, and it's for the day of the inspection. Now, I'm not trying to, CYA, but there's limits. I mean, there's limits. And good agents, I think, really understand that and don't give their buyer unrealistic expectations. You may want to think about a home warranty, things like that. I mean, certainly, anybody who's been in this business long enough, they move in, even though they've had an inspection, the roof leaks or something. If it's something the inspector should have seen, well, then that inspector, in my mind, should step up to the plate and take responsibility for that in some way or not. But then you also get somebody who's, going to remodel their kitchen, and they take out a wall and there's damage there, but there was no way anybody could have seen it without taking out that wall. I mean, that's unrealistic. Just don't throw the inspector under the bus right away because, they're people just like you. They have limitations, just like
anytime you can think of where the inspection would be a bad idea, other than, of course, if I'm buying like something I'm going to tear down. But can you think of any instance where getting a home inspection, especially if you're representing the buyer, would be not advisable?
No, I really can't think of any, honestly. I've had, I don't know if this is proper or whatever. I've had, mortgage people say, don't let me see that inspection report. The mortgage person always wants the termite report and we do termite, the wood destroying insect report. We do that as well because a lot of times the loan, is contingent on that. And the reason for that is a lot of homeowners' insurance policies will not cover termite damage. So in the event that they had to foreclose on the house, if it got hit by lightning or flood, they're covered, but termite damage, they're not. So that's why that termite report is so vital, why they want it so much.
So you guys, remember, especially for representing the buyer, always get the home inspection. Don't freak out. There'll be big deal. There'll be little deal. Go through it. Prepare your clients in advance. Use the checklist that Preston recommended. I posted the link. It's in the comments. Go get it. And preparing your clients, giving information in advance without overloading them.
Sure.
Will set the stage so that there are proper expectations, there is enough information, And as I always say, every problem has a solution. Every problem, there's always if there is no solution, it's not a problem. You don't have a problem. You have a condition. So if it's a problem, there's always a solution that can be solved either with work, with money, with negotiations. Don't let deals die just because somebody gets emotional or stubborn. There is always a solution every single time. Serve your clients, help them. If you have any questions for Preston, just post it here in the comments. What question do your clients ask the most often? What do they want to know most often?
The one question I always hear that, is a loaded question. Would you buy this house? And I always, and I have inspectors, we role play and we get those questions. And, the way I always tell them to answer it is, well, that depends. Honestly, I would buy any house if the price was right. I have some rental properties, but, your needs and, place where you are in your life may be different than mine. I mean, you may have kids in school and you're looking for a good school district. You may work close to downtown, and you want to get closer to downtown. You may have horses and you want to be out. So, everybody's, but from a health of the house or well-being of the house, I agree with what you said. Almost every house can be fixed. I have rarely seen a house that can't be fixed. I mean, it is very rare unless, hoarders lived there for 30 years and hadn't thrown away the trash. It needs to be condemned. But, I mean, you got houses down in Charleston, they're 250 years old. They've been through earthquakes, fires, Revolutionary Wars. They got cannonballs in the attic. And you have to pay extra for that, and they're still there, they're still there. So I agree with you. Everything can be fixed. And I would buy any house, but my needs and wants may be different than yours. So, my price point for a particular house may be different. But,
good deal. Preston, good stuff. Really enjoyed this very much. Very helpful, very practical advice. A lot of the times, agents are naturally, logically very preoccupied and busy generating business. But when the business comes and deal dies on something like this, it's such a waste of opportunity. So it's good to be prepared and educated. And you can't know too much, guys. Never, ever. There's always something cool, new, helpful to learn. If somebody wants to get hold of you, how to get a hold of you? Maybe they have questions or they may need to hire your company. Give us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, you can go to our website at homeinspectioncarolina.com. You can email us through there, or my website is hicarolina1@gmail.com. hicarolina1@gmail.com or homeinspectioncarolina.com.
Cool. So get hold of Preston if you need. What areas do you cover? Just Charleston, or where are you?
Oh, well, I'm in Charlotte. I said Charleston because we vacation. That's only 3 hours away. But the Charlotte area, probably a 25-mile radius, Raleigh area, and Asheville, 25-mile radius of each.
In Carolina. Good deal. All right. Preston, thank you so much. You want to throw in anything else that we haven't talked about, or you feel like we've shared good stuff?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate what you're doing, helping. I love real estate agents, and they've been good to me. And any way I can help you guys, please use me as a resource. Shoot me an email, and I'll try to help. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to find somebody who does.
Excellent. All right, you guys. Thank you for being here, Preston. Appreciate it very much. You guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. More good stuff coming. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about my man, David Serpa, who's going to teach you some pretty cool tricks working with buyers. Who's really good with buyers. So kind of ties in nicely with what we talked about today. All right, you guys. With that, we're going to sign off. Have a terrific day. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day. Coach Borino signing off. Let's go get him. Bye, everybody.